and let's just get some content up and running. So we've got a 3 versus 3. This is all pro level, and let's give that a resume and go. So we have got Lewd Gothic Lolly, which you probably know as Petric Pones. We have got Taquido, he's coming in as Cybran, of course, and we've got Bloodier, he is coming in as Seraphim this time in his customary purple. And that is our north team. So there are a couple of extra slots over here which will be taken, and we'll see how the guys fight over that and manage to retain their map control. And let's head on down to the south team, and we've got Mephi. So Mephi is going Cybran. We have got Blackheart, so we've actually got Blackheart playing in the game, and he's going UEF. And we've got Zoc, so a pretty heady group here. We've got quite a lot of skill, and we're going to see how these guys are going to get on with their initial expansions and taking each other out. So let's just have a quick look at the build orders and plans to get underway with their expansion. Okay, so Petric is going straight for the Hydra. We can see no Pigeons. He will be assisting that with his ACU, and that's going to get him a little bit of power straight away. And so we've got a Hydro Rush build and another one. So these guys are probably all on the same page here with grabbing the Hydro first, then probably chucking down an air factory for each of them after a couple more PGs in order to be able to run that. So we've got pretty much identical builds across the board, and the same thing again. So it's pretty standard, I would suggest, for this map, and exactly the same thing. So if you are wondering what you should do on this map, it's probably something along the lines of get your mixers, rush the Hydro, couple of PGs, and then an air factory. So that's what everyone here is going for, and we'll see how this works out for them. Well, we should be starting to see a little bit of expansion going on now. We can see some of the move orders going here now. So we've got an engineer out, and he's going to be heading all the way into the middle and grabbing some of that reclaim. Let's just use the control shift and see how much there is. There's actually not a lot of large reclaim. You can see a little bit dotted around the map, but for the most part it's mostly just teeny tiny rocks, and they're not actually going to show up on that control shift command. Now we can see, let's have a look at that expansion. That's an interesting wall build there. So Bloody is trying to take this territory and stop anybody coming up through there. And well, that's at the end of a series of mixes and reclaims. Interesting there. And of course, any early harassment is going to put a big dent in these guys, because they've got a lot of build orders queued up for those engineers. And if you're able to take one of those out with maybe a bomber, maybe a mech marine, maybe a tank, then those guys are going to lose all the build orders that they had, so that will be a nice little bit of damage. We can see Mephi's actually thinking about doing a little bit of raiding with this Mantis up here, so we'll have to see what comes of that. He's sitting there with a radar, so he has got a little bit of intel, but not a great deal. There we go, he's remembered to move that off, and he's done a nice little thing there where he's assisted the Mantis with the scouts. The scout actually follows because, of course, the scout is a lot faster than the Mantis. So if you're wondering why, when you grab both of those guys and tell them to go somewhere, the scout lands there way earlier than the Mantis does, that's because the scout's nice and fast. If you assist like that, the scout's going to trail along behind, give that radar coverage that you want without getting up ahead and getting one-shotted by an ACU. How are we going in terms of... Oh, there's a nice little bit of rating. So first blood here is going to, well, looks like it's probably just going to go Blackheart's way. There we go. And he's taken that advanced unit out, but there is an ACU wandering up this way. So Mephi is looking like he's really wanting to contest this area against Blodeer. And, well, he's actually managed to sneak that Mantis that we were looking at into this mix. This mix array here, so he is going to do a little bit of harassment, but he's probably not going to get too far because there are some fams, because Bloody is Seraphim. They are giving chase, but they're actually not going to be able to catch up to that very easily. And a nice little bomber there from Mephi comes in as well and takes out that expanding engineer. So that's putting a little bit more of a dampener on Bloodier's efforts. So Mephi really trying to put the pressure on. Have we got the same sort of pressure on this side? We can see Petric is actually coming down this way. He is going to apply the same sort of pressure to Zoc, and we'll see how that goes there. Zoc is going to be well aware of that ACU because he's got a scout right overhead, and it looks like the scouting is pretty even for these guys. We can see Taquido's had a scout just over Blackheart's base. We've got Zoc's scout heading around there, and of course the radar on that bomber there as it's doing a little bit of harassment. There is a T1 anti-air out now taking a little bit of damage, but not quite able to do the job just yet, and it takes out some more engineers. So Mephi is doing an excellent job of harassing Blodier's expansion efforts, and well, just trying to take out his power. I think I suggest is the goal there as well. If he can take out that power, he will hamper him. Let's see how close Blodier is to the red line with his power. Well, he's actually overflowing just a little bit at the moment. Losing a couple of PGs wouldn't be the end of the world for him. Mephi has managed to secure this area here, though. It was a lot closer to him than it was to Blodier, so that's going to be, well, he doesn't have a lot of assistance yet, and it is going to be a lot closer for Blodier to bring his troops in. So he's got these guys right here, and they are going to be able to shoot across and assist. So the ACU with those units is going to be able to kick out the other ACU from that area. And are we going to see the same sort of thing from Zlo? Well, Petrik's actually on an upgrade, so he's trying to get something. He's got upgrading Fluffy T2, so that's going to be the T2 engineering suite going down on that ACU, and that'll give him the ability to put down those T2 point defenses, and those guys are going to be a little bit hard for a commander to assault. Even though he's Cybran, the extra range on those Cerberus turrets does do a fantastic job of warding off an ACU, especially if it doesn't have a lot of support and if it doesn't have mobile missile launchers yet. We can see Mephi backed off just a little bit, but he's brought in a few reinforcements and he's coming back in. He's pretty determined to take out this group of units. Half a dozen tanks like that is not going to be a match for an ACU, so if Mephi can catch those guys without his ACU, he will be able to eliminate those forces and maybe get a little bit of an upper hand. It looks like he's throwing away a few tanks, though. They're just heading in too close to Blodier's ACU, and Mephi's coming back down to get a little bit of an assist there. So these guys really just sort of pushing and pulling a little bit at each other, not really able to make a heck of a lot of progress as of yet. They don't want a mutual KO on those commanders, and let's see what happens with those guys. How is that T2 upgrade going for Petrik? He has got it down and he's throwing down that first Cerberus turret. So he's really trying to secure this area, and we can see a radar going down behind that. And that's going to give him the intel that he needs to use that Cerberus turret. And he's going to have to be fast about that because the ACU is coming in for Zok. And it's going to start taking out those Mantis. Now the Cerberus is online. Zok does see that. What's he going to do in response? He's not going to do anything. He's going to plunge forward and he's just going to try and take that out. He can certainly smash that Cerberus turret out of the way if there's not a lot of assistance with Petrik. Let's just have a look at Zok and see if he happens to have overcharge. No, he's not got a lot of overflow energy at the moment, and he hasn't got that storage yet. So it's a bit early in the game for him to really have that online. But he does have enough in the way of T1 to knock that Cerberus turret out, and he's going to be able to push Petrik back. That's going to be a little bit of a win for Zok, and he will take that territory. How's Mephi going over this side? Well, looks like Taquito's brought his ACU in from the side, so he's going to give a little bit of an assist to Blodier, and I'm not quite sure what. Okay, so Mephi is actually throwing down an upgrade, and he's going to try and get. There's actually no notify on. Upgrading gun, there we go. So that is gun, it's about 30% complete so far, and that's going to be a little bit of a problem for all of this T1 if he's able to complete that. He is coming under a bit of artillery fire, so that's going to be a problem for him. Without the gun upgrade, that T1 artillery does outrange the ACU, and it is going to eat through a lot of health before he can get that finished. So it looks like he was forced to abandon that gun upgrade, that artillery doing a fantastic job of just pushing him in there and getting him to waste that eco. So Mephi is now struggling a little bit on what to do next, because Blodier has built a sufficient number of T1 units up in this area that Blodier is able to hold that against what Mephi's currently got. There is a little bit of reclaim that Mephi could probably be picking up there, try and get a little bit of an eco advantage. Now these guys are still duking it out. Zok has taken quite a bit of damage, a little bit more than Petrik has. But he has got a good number of Zuis, so if that commander does stay still for any length of time, he is going to take a big number of Zui hits, and that is just going to rip through the HP. He's actually up to 14,850 maximum HP on that, so that is with one veterancy, and he's throwing down another Cerberus turret, so he's still trying to play a little bit of the Cerberus turret PD creep game, but I'm not sure that's going to work too well as Cybran. So it's the action seems to all be concentrated on the two sides at the moment. The centre players are taking a little bit more of an opportunity to gear up, and well, we can see Blackheart's already shifted to T2, so those T2 tanks are going to be able to push through. He's actually chosen to go for Riptide, so those are hover. I'm not quite sure why he selected hover. He must be speed, perhaps. In any case, the T2 will be able to deal with the T1 that Takedo's got in the centre, and that actually leaves Takedo a little bit vulnerable. He's got one PD in the middle here, but the limited range on that means that it's quite easy for Blackheart to skirt around the outside and just get around and back into Takedo's base. Takedo has shifted up to T2 though, and he's got some Rhinos out on the way, so those Rhinos will be a pretty good match for those Riptides if they come into play. And well, how many we've got? We've actually got a few coming up as well, so Blackheart's probably got a little bit more force here in the centre than Takedo can deal with right now, and if he was to push quite hard, it is going to cause a little bit of a problem, force these guys to react. So I'm not quite sure how that's going to play out, and we can see Petrick is under quite sustained fire here. He is down to 4,800 HP, he's just about into the red, he will be shortly. There's still an awful lot of T1 in the way of him, and still losing up a little bit. There's a lot more, and there's some bombers as well, so Zoc doing an excellent job of actually using those bombers to harass. Blackheart is throwing a little bit of interceptor coverage up to get a little bit of air support, and it looks like Takedo is probably opposing that, and he's actually got some flak on the field as well, which is going to do an excellent job of taking down those T1 bombers. Even though the muzzle velocity on the flank is very low, it's still able to catch the slow moving T1 bombers and do quite a lot of damage. And Petrick down into the red, he's going to have to be really careful here. Flipped up into the yellow just briefly with that regen that he's got on the Cyber and ACU, but he's up to 7,900, so he's doing quite well with that regen, and he's probably able to deal with that T1 as it comes in. Most of it looks to be artillery that's firing at him at the moment, and of course you can dodge artillery reasonably well, and it looks like Blackheart is actually being pushed back a little bit by those Rhinos that Takedo has brought into play, and there's also a PD here as well, so T1 PD is still reasonably effective against those T2 tanks, so it's not going to be too bad. Looks like a little bit of a stalemate over here between Mickey and Bladeer. Bladeer was able to secure all of the eco here, and we can see he's throwing down some upgrades on those mass extractors. And speaking of mass, let's have a look at how our players are going. It looks like Blackheart is leading the pack. He's sitting on 78 mass at the moment. That is quite effective. He's got a lot of T2 mixers back here, and they're all capped, and he's even pushing up to T3. So he's doing a pretty hard eco push there, and you can see that in the score. And we've got Bladeer next on 67 generated mass, 69 as I speak. And then we're down into the 30s and 40s for the rest of these guys. So most of them are struggling a little bit for mass, mostly T1 mixes across the board, apart from a couple of players who are managing to push up into the T2, and we can see Blackheart really pushing for that T3. He is really playing the eco game. We're probably going to see some experimentals out of him first, and this ACU is still sitting here. He's smashing away all the T1 that Zoc is throwing at him. He's got 88 kills now on that ACU. Another overcharge takes out another clump, so he's doing a fantastic job of single-handedly stemming that spam with his ACU. Excellent job there, and it's giving Takedo the ability to build up this T2 and just provide a little bit of support and really be able to push in the centre if Zoc was to falter with this T1. The only problem that Takedo has is if he was to push up against Zoc, then all of this T2 here would be free to come from Blackheart's position all the way up into the base and wreck the eco, so that's going to be a little bit of a problem. And it looks like these guys up in the top right here have devolved into a bit of a point defense firebase war. So we're seeing a lot of T2 PD, we can see mobile missile launchers, and frankly I wouldn't be surprised if they threw down some T2 artillery in the immediate future. And we can see how one big drawback of the Cerberus turret is the direct fire that they have, and in this case Blackheart, Petrick has built it just a little bit too low. We can see it's just sitting down a little bit, and it's shooting the ground as a result. So even though these guys are all in range, it's shooting the ground instead of doing any actual damage. So it's actually bringing this ACU in. Let's see what he's actually thinking about here. Well, he's just taking out engineers. He's probably just wanting to secure the area a little bit more. There is actually quite a bit of reclaim still over here that he can pick up. There's a decent sized rock. It's still gone unclaimed, and he probably should get onto that. How are these guys going over there? Well, Mickey's cleared his out. Bladeer has cleared out a bunch of it, but not all of it. So yeah, they're doing a pretty good job, and we can see there's quite a lot of wreckage littered around from the battle that's been going on between these guys on the left-hand side. So I think whoever can grab their hands on that reclaim is going to get a little bit of a leg up in eco, and it looks like that is actually Petrick right now. And Takedo has gone for that push with those rhinos, and they're going to do fairly well against the T1. There is a little bit of T2, there's an Ushibur who has come into play, and so that's going to be a little bit of a problem for them, but the issue now is that he's really, well, he's using up all the force that he had and not really getting anywhere, and that leaves Blackheart to, well, it really isn't applying any pressure to Blackheart. And we can see some TAC missiles coming in. So there is a TAC launcher up here for Takedo, and he is cheekily firing down here, and he's managed to take out that T2 HQ. That is quite a nice little play there from Takedo, and he spotted that T2 mix as well, and he's taken that guy out. So that's going to hamper Zoc just a little bit. It brings Zoc down to 55 generated mass, and that's, well, second to bottom. He's still actually doing better than Takedo, who spent all of his mass building that TAC missile launcher, but it's still a setback for Zoc. So, well, yeah, see how he manages to cope with that and how fast he can throw up those T2 TAC missile defenses. Of course, a little bit of a problem for him now is he has no T2 engineers in play over here, and if that was his HQ, he might actually be a little bit stuck for T2 engineers in entirety at the moment, actually, because without those T2 engineers he can't get TAC missile defense up. And what have we got here? There we go. So these guys are obviously either talking, or Blackheart is super observant and has noticed that there is a T2, or the lack of T2 over here, and a very, very helpful teammate has brought in that engineer, and Zoc's going to assist him, and he's going to throw down that TAC missile defense. That is fantastic to see between those two guys there. And we've got a nice little array of mobile missile launchers building up here for Mephi, and that's going to put a little bit of pressure on Bladir. We can see he's actually coming forward to try and counter that, so he's going to throw what he has against this fire base, and there's a couple of PDs in here. They are Cerberus turrets, and with that ACU coming in, that's actually up to 20k health, so that's going to be a reasonably difficult commander to kill. And with all of this T1 coming in as well, it looks like Bladir probably has enough. Maybe only has the T1 in play over here, apart from those little missile launchers, and those are not going to do much against the moving unit of Bladir at all. So that is going to be a bit of a win for Bladir. He's going to be able to clear out that position, claim a little bit more eco, a bunch of reclaim, and really just put a little bit more pressure back on Mephi. But what he really needs to do is get some pressure down here onto Blackheart, because right now Blackheart is able to tick up as he sees fit and do whatever he likes, and we can actually see the result of that. We've got a couple of Titans at the front here, so Blackheart choosing to pump out some Titans, and that's going to be to try and clear up the T1 and maybe a bit of T2 that these guys are producing. Titans, of course, are nice and fast. They get across the field really quickly, but they do not have a lot of health or damage, so they are not terribly effective if they come up against any hard targets. So he will probably switch up to Percival's, and we can actually see there's already a Percy on the field. So a couple of Titans to get out to the front quickly and support, and then switch up to Percy's and start pumping out the real firepower. Now, what is Bladir doing here? He's losing enough of his units, I think, that he's, well, actually it looks like he's a little bit afraid of a push from Zoc here. So Zoc, even though he's on the far left, he's pushing his units right across, so he's actually spotted Takedo's ACU, and Takedo could be in a little bit of trouble there. There is enough of a pack of Ilshivas there to take Takedo out if he was to get to the ACU, and it looks like Bladir has had to redirect his forces just to save Takedo and make sure that he is not overrun there. And, well, it looks like the North team, they've had all of their units pulled out of position. Bladir is scrambling to cover Takedo's ACU, and it means that Blackheart can actually push right through here. Now, there is a loyalist on the field, so there's a single loyalist down from Petrick. He is going to be able to do a reasonable amount of damage, but there's still a lot of T2, and there's still a couple of Titans, and I mean, Titans are a bit useless, but they still will be able to do a little bit of damage and cause a few problems. And so now there's actually a decent pack of firepower from Blackheart approaching Bladir's original starting position, and not a lot to stop. And it looks like Zoc's actually grabbed that pack of Ilshivas and come out to support. So what are these guys going to do? They've actually turned around and they are thinking twice about that. Probably not wanting to offer up the reclaim, though. I think they could probably make a pretty good push and take out a lot of eco if they were head through now. We can see a lot of PD we can see Bloodeer is extremely worried about those guys coming right through, and he's reacting by throwing down a ton of T1 PD, and that will be able to do quite a lot against a pack of Ilshivas. If they just charge straight into the base, they will take a lot of damage, and it looks like Blackheart is totally backed out of there, and Zoc, well, it looks like he abandoned Zoc a little bit and gave up that pack of Ilshivas. So that's going to be a little bit of a win for the North team. They've managed to take out Zoc's units. They've made Blackheart retreat a little bit, and they've got themselves a little bit of reclaim and not lost any eco. They've also managed to push all the way back here, and we can see there's a bit of artillery fire coming up now. We can see, where is that coming from? Oh no, those are missiles. It looks like stray mobile missiles, perhaps. And we can see Blackheart's actually giving a little bit of support here by throwing some of those Perseus over towards Mephi. So Blackheart is actually doing a really nice job of supporting his teammates and making sure they've got what they need so that he doesn't lose one of his flanking players and get overrun from the side. So, well, it looks like a little bit of a stalemate now. These guys are not wanting to push forward. There's a really interesting formation of walls that Petric has thrown down here. I'm not quite sure what the purpose of that is. It must be to confuse the enemy engineers and make them not be able to reclaim, because there's just so many walls and not a lot else going on here. So perhaps we'll see wall-on-wall action. And how is Bloodeer planning on keeping this? So has he got any T3? Just looking around for eco and seeing how much these guys are ecoing up. In terms of overall eco, though, Blackheart's still well ahead, 181 generated mass. Bloodeer sitting on 147, and Petric 108, Zoc 140. Mephi and Takedo still lagging behind, and that's going to probably be as a result of, well, a lot of fighting for Mephi. He put a lot into this firebase and going against Bloodeer and did not manage to capitalize on that and gave up all that reclaim to Bloodeer. And Takedo is still struggling a little bit back here. He's got his T3 headquarters online. He's going to be able to push out some T3 in the immediate future. Anyway, he's actually got a couple of bricks online here, which is going to be really handy. Bricks are, well, the only thing that you can really do at this level to stop those Percivals. You just need to try and outnumber them with bricks and hope that they don't get too big a pack of Percivals, because once those guys get a sufficient number, once they get critical mass, they are incredibly difficult to stop. And if you can throw down a Monkey Lord and have bricks supporting them, then you're probably going to be able to be okay. But you definitely do not want Blackheart to be able to build up 10, 20 Percivals in a pack, because that is going to be very, very difficult to stop. And we can see he's actually starting to build up a reasonable number there. A push from those guys is going to start to get really hard to block. Now, we've got a bunch of T1 bombers out from Zoc, and so we've got a couple of little packs there. And what is he going for? Is he going for anything in particular? Not really. He's just getting them shot down by flak. Not the most effective things in the world. Looks like they've spotted Takedo's ACU though, and he's down into the yellow, and he's probably going to get pinned back down in that pond. Mephi right around him, and well, he's sitting on 10,000 out of 16,000 HP. He's going to need a bit of support. Bloodeer's actually bringing that support in right now, and he's going to force all of those T1 and T2 units back. And there's actually a bunch of engineers coming in for reclaim. Unfortunately, those guys are not going to get anything reclaimed before they are swatted out of there, and Bloodeer retakes the area and manages to evacuate Takedo's ACU and keep him alive. So a nice team play again there, and we can see that Blackheart's actually switched up to T3 Air. So we'll go down here, we'll see this T3 Air HQ, and that guy there is responsible for a bunch of ASFs. Now, I don't see a lot of air tech on the field for the North team. Let's just have a quick scout around their bases. We've got the T3 land that we can see, but it looks like these guys have probably all neglected their air play just a little bit. And what was that noise? That was a strap bomber, and boom. So Blackheart is now capitalizing on that lack of air from the north, and he is taking out eco as he sees fit. Now, this is a bit sad for Takedo, because he was already at the bottom of the mass income scoreboard, and he's just had 3 T2 mass extractors sniped out by that strat bomber. So that is a little bit of a problem for him. He's managed to get a SAM up online, but because that's stationary, the strat bomber is now just floating around the periphery, and he's just going to take out as much of those T2 mass extractors as he can find. Bloodier is reacting with his T1 air, but those guys are a little bit slow. Unless you can actually get within range of the strap bomber magically and then stay within range, then you're not actually going to be able to do a lot, because the speed is the same for those interceptors as it is for the strap bombers. So if you're lagging behind like they are now, they will not get a single shot off, and they are all going to get taken out. And Petrik's trying to do exactly the same thing, but those interceptors just can't catch up, and the strap bomber, well, it's actually stopped and given them a little bit of an opportunity, but the ASF around there for Blackheart are just going to be a bit too hard for them to stop. It didn't actually drop that bomb, so I'm not sure what was going on there. I'm sure that was the intended target, but it hasn't managed to take it out. But still, a very effective strap bomb. We can see a bunch of these mass extractor points are all vacant now, and that is thanks to that single strat that Blackheart got out. And what is he doing here with Janus? He has built up a stack of those guys, and it looks like he's going to throw them forward, well, just to the center there. He is advancing with that big pack of Percivals, so that's going to be really hard. Unless there's a Monkey Lord online already, that's going to be quite a big ask for these guys to stop. There's a lone artillery sitting in there on the beach, and he's just plinking away and trying to do a little bit of damage. And because he's actually down there, we can see that he's sitting like that. He's actually immune to all of that fire. So unless those persons walk right up to the edge, no, he's going to have to go closer than that, and he's going to have to get right in and just about on top of that artillery to be able to actually shoot it. Now, what is the plan for these Janus? Because he's pulled them back a little bit. He must be looking for an ACU. Now, where have these guys parked their ACUs? Under shields. And what have we got up here? That is Bloodier's ACU. He's not actually under a shield at the moment, but he is pushing his T3 Air Factory HQ. So that's going to give him his ASF. Well, he's actually already got it, and he's got a few ASF out. He's a little bit behind Blackheart, but he will be able to catch up a little bit. He is, of course, the highest eco on the northern team. We do have to watch this here, though. This is a big problem for Bladier. He's got enough Percivals in here that they're going to be able to smash their way through the half a dozen Othams that are there. Most of them are already damaged as well, and there's just another few Zoes and a little bit of extra help for those Othams, but that's not going to be enough to take on this number of Percival. Let's just have a quick look at how many Percies. He is running 22. They are spread out a little bit, but the bulk of them are here at the front, and that's going to be a real problem if he was to push forward. Now, I'm not quite sure why he's decided to pull back. He must be seeing something that's giving him cause for concern, because that is not something that you would expect to do with 20 Percivals. You would expect to be able to smash right through there and take out one of those guys. And of course I've missed it. Mephi. What happened to Mephi there? Let's see if we can see what happened in chat. No, there's nothing so far. That was obviously a snipe. And well, whoops. Okay, so Mephi has managed to be taken out, presumably by Bladier. We might have a quick, well, now since this is a stream, we won't have a chance to look at it at the end, but we'll try and figure out what happened to him. Now these Percivals, I don't know quite what Blackheart is doing here. He's got enough there that he can really smash through at any one point that he chooses. He could hang a left here and go straight into Petrik's base. Petrik doesn't have anything out yet that can stop him. Or he could go straight up through Takedo's base, which is probably not the greatest idea right now, because Takedo is behind on eco, and he's not the greatest threat. It's really Bladier and maybe Petrik. Petrik is sitting on 170 income, so that's still quite respectable, and that's going to be is enough to push out some experimentals if he was to focus on that. And so it looks like the Percies are pulling back a little bit. He's being very cautious here, which is interesting. I'm not sure what you can see. Well, there's actually Rex online. There's still nothing there that can really challenge the number of Percivals that Blackheart has got online. Let's see his intel. They've got pretty good intel, so he is well aware of most of the things that are coming through here, but he's just being a little bit cautious. He definitely does not want to be feeding that reclaim. He's probably going to use his mass advantage to just build up an overwhelming number of Percivals and just then use them to smash through the line. But we'll just have to wait and see if the guys are able to put anything out that's going to be able to block that, because if they get a monkey or a megalith, or, well, since these guys are all Cybern, there's actually a possibility of a Dakota coming out from Bladier, then that's potentially going to be a problem for that pack of Perseus, and they don't want to take too much T3 artillery fire either, and well, it doesn't look like there's actually much in the way of T3 artillery, if any, so far. Nice use of sniper bots there, so Bloodier is employing those sniper bots and they're just flinging away at higher range and able to do a little bit of damage. If he's able to kite with those, if Blackheart does just sit in the centre for too much longer, that is going to be a bit of a problem. He will lose too much health, so he probably will want to react to those sniper bots fairly soon. You can see a decent little array of SAMs, well actually not an array, just a single couple of SAMs, and that's just to block the scouts. So it looks like the North team maybe is struggling a little bit for intel. Well, actually they do have intel, and they can see this blip right here, and let's go and see from observer view. We can see that Zoc, because he's been relatively unmolested for the last, well, probably 10-15 minutes now, he is able to throw up that Ethoda, and we can see, well, Petrick switched up to T3 here as well, so they're finally getting a few scouts up. They do already have the intel on the Ethoda though, and that's going to be quite problematic here in the centre. We've already got what can be an overwhelming force. Now also scooping up with the recon, we can see a nice little use of a fort factory, and looks like he's not actually got an attack move out of that factory just yet, but that'll be the plan, and that'll be to scoop up all of the mass left over from this battle. We can actually see there's a ton of mass now. We can see there's a lot of mass sitting in this little field, so whoever's going to pick that up is probably going to get enough to throw together an experimental, and that's going to be, well, I would suggest it would probably be the North team at this point, because the South team is just not pushing that hard. They've got a lot of force in the centre, but they're just waiting for something. I'm not quite sure what that something is, but they are waiting nonetheless. It could be for the Ethoda, which has been pinged, and once that hits the centre, that is going to be a real problem. Have we got any responding? There we go, there's a megalith. So there's a megalith going down there for Petrick, and do we have anything else going down? Looks like Lydia's reclaimed a bunch of things for the mass. There is a Ethoda just coming into production over there. And how about down here for Blackheart? Well, we can see there is a Fat Boy. That is a decent way through completion, and somehow these guys have managed to not really use that advantage that they had, and now the North team is really in control of that reclaim field, and we can see those engineers jumping in to scoop that up. The Ethoda though is going to put a dampener on that. Only a few bricks in the way, and those bricks are not going to be enough to stop this Ethoda. So, well, it's taking a little bit of fire from the sniper bots. We have seen it in the past where an experimental does lose out to sniper bots when they kite them, but in this case I'm not sure. It looks like Bloody's probably not moving them back quick enough, and there's actually an awful lot of offense built up. Bloody has got a pretty significant income. He's only just slightly behind Blackheart now, and it looks like he's pumping a lot of that into offense, and that zone is now really down into the yellow, and there are a lot there, and well, nice touch with the shield gem there, and that's going to absorb a little bit of firepower, and that Dota is really going to just eat fire, and that is really going down quickly, and that is going to disappear in just a moment, and that's going to be a problem for all these Percivals, because that lightning storm is going to smash a lot of health off those Percivals if they don't back up out of there. Bloodier was, well, he's quite heavily damaged there. He's lost most of those offense, and he's really limping in terms of getting a force together. Plenty to ward off this T1 that Zoc is sending up, maybe just trying to be a little bit cheeky there, and if there was a gap, get some T1 into the base for a little bit of cheap damage. But that Ethoda now has become reclaimed, and that's going to be a bit of a problem, because that is way closer to the North team, and they've got that monkey, so Chiquito's thrown a monkey online, and that megalith is really close to completion. And how's the Ethoda going? It is, well, still in the red, so not really being focused on the build there. We've got the Fat Boy on the line. Let's see how Blackheart makes use of that, because that is going to have the extra range to be able to take out a lot of Bloody's units, and Bloody's not going to have a lot to stop that. Well, let's see, look for a attack missile battery, because attack missiles are really effective against Fat Boys, because the big bubble shield means that you can pretty easily target it and get a hit on the shield and take that shield down. And once the shield is down on a Fat Boy, it doesn't have a lot of HP, and it will go down pretty quickly. I didn't actually catch what Blackheart used all of those Janus bombers for, and it looks like they've probably gone. So perhaps he did send them and they died, or perhaps he thought better about it and decided it was a misclick. But in any case, no Janus to follow there, and we can see what this monkey is going to do. Now, there's still a lot of T2 in that mix. There's only a few personals left. Those guys are not going to be able to withstand a monkey very well at all. And there's still a ton of reclaim. We can see all of these numbers floating around here. And so far, Bloody has yet to bite into that Ethoda wreck. But that is going to go a long way to throwing this one up. And that's going to give quite an advantage to the North team in terms of mass, picking up all of reclaim from that battle. Let's see how this fat boy does, because he is able to do quite a bit of damage to those guys at range. And looks like Taquito's actually backing off due to that fat boy as well. So not really sure what they want to do here. They do really need to push up and get right into that fat boy, get within range, and it will die fairly quickly. But it looks like Blackheart has got enough support online to really block them getting the units up and causing that damage they need to that fat boy. And it looks like Petrick is actually taking the opportunity to throw a few bricks down this way, and Blackheart has actually left a bit of an opening, and that's really undefended. And he's going to take out those engineers, and it looks like he's redirecting them to assist in this fight. The Megalith is actually here as well. So, well, this monkey really needs to be up in the fight. And if they could get into that fat boy and kill it, that's going to be a big problem, because Blackheart hasn't got anything to stop a monkey and a megalith and a few bricks at the moment. So we'll see if he's able to take out that fat boy. I'm not sure if they're going to be able to get within range. Megalith, okay, we'll start doing some damage to those Perseverals. We'll see how that works out. We can see Blackheart is actually backing away. He's pulling it off to the right, just trying to make sure he stays out of range of that megalith with the fat boy. Alright, let's have a look. Well, actually the megalith is now taking a bit of fire. He's going to want to move it. He's backing it up slowly. So the megalith is nice in that you can back it up slowly and keep firing out of the front cannons, but in this case he probably wants to get away a little bit quicker than that, or charge in and take out that fat boy, as long as he's got enough support to be able to take that guy out. And we can see the fat boy is now actually focusing up towards Bloodier's base a little bit more, trying to clear out everything here. Probably quite important to take out these engineers, which are grabbing the reclaim. So far the reclaim is still sitting there, and it's still got a lot on it. And there's actually a couple of Perseverals guarding it, so Blackheart will be trying to stop the cheeky engineers from Bloodier from getting in there and taking that out. So, oh dear. Blackheart, they managed to take out Blackheart. What am I doing? How did I miss that? Time for a replay. Let's see if I happen to catch that. Pause that and replay it. Can we see what on earth? I'm a bit slow there. Oh dear. Alright, let's just carry on. And that does mean, though, that it's going to very, very favour this in terms of the North team. So they managed to take out Blackheart. I really should have watched this first and seen what on earth was going on with that. And now it means that there's only Zoc holding out. He does have a reasonable amount of eco. He's pulling in 498 right now. I'm not sure how much reclaim is involved in that, but let's just speed it up a little bit and see if he's able to hold these guys off. I'm guessing the answer is going to be no, but it's going to be not too far away when he is taken out. Where is his ACU? He is going to be... well, somewhere safe. I'm just looking for that safe spot. Just blind. I'm just blind, that's all. Okay, so he's sitting there under that shield, so he's now trying to throw together some Methodas. He's got, I mean, enough eco, he can really hold off for a little bit, but there is just nothing he can do. He's not got any air support. Strap Bomber's already in the game if these guys don't take him out with all these units. But we can see now it's all just converging on Zok's base. Zok got a little bit of firepower online, but just not enough to hold those guys back, and we can see the experimentals splitting off, making sure they take out any experimentals that are trying to go up. And so there's the one online and probably two. Yes, this one's just come online, and they're going to be able to just hold that for a little bit. But things are looking extremely dire for Zok. He is down to 325 mass income, and looks to be a little bit end of the road for him. So sad. How did I manage to miss that? Oh, and there's a nuke ping going down, and there we go. That's out from Takedo, and so he does have a couple of photos online. It's able to do a little bit of defense, but not against nuclear explosions. And there it goes. Not even bothering to try and move his ACU, and that is the end of the game. Alright, so that was a 34-minute game on Phenom Spartiate version 2. A lot of high-level, high-ranking players in that, and, well, that's how it went down. So nice win there to the North team. They managed to outspam and outproduce Blackheart, Zok, and Mephi, which is quite an achievement. And that's the end of that one.